There's nothing wrestling fans love more than wrestling video games. No matter what generation you grew up in, there's always a wrestling game you look back on fondly. Some people grew up with SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, or SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Some, including me, grew up with the SmackDown vs. Raw games, most notably SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. And some people had to grow up with tag team wrestling. Looks fun. And with all wrestling video games, companies need to try and create hype to make sure your ass is gonna buy their new game. Maybe a cool looking trailer or teaser will do the job. Boring, everyone does that. How about a real wrestling match at E3? Yes, back in 1999, E3 would take over the Los Angeles Expo Center in Los Angeles. This year's E3 would see the likes of Final Fantasy VIII, Crash Team Racing, Spyro 2, and many other games showcased to attendees. While gaming was at the forefront for E3, so was a special wrestling event hosted by EA and WCW. Going into the convention, EA were planning to show off their first game of WCW at the time, WCW Mayhem. However, to make things much more interesting at the EA booth, it was announced that a special WCW event would be held, dubbed Loose in Los Angeles. This event would see two of the top WCW wrestlers going head-to-head in an intense wrestling match of EA's new wrestling game, WCW Mayhem. As originally announced, the event was slated to feature former WCW World Heavyweight Champion Goldberg. While no other names were given for Loose in Los Angeles, Goldberg would be competing for the WCW Mayhem Championship belt. With both wrestling and video games being at such a hot peak at the time, it seemed like the makings of a hot draw for convention attendees. Now you might be thinking, Gage, how did you find this obscure piece of wrestling history? Well, to be honest, I found this while watching a Scott the Woz video.
You could catch David Bowie performing at Sony's E3 party. Why go to the WCW Mayhem wrestling match when you could stand in the Nintendo logo?
So you're intrigued, aren't you? So let's not waste any more time and dive into WCW Loose in Los Angeles. On May 13th, the first day of E3 would finally commence. While the WWF was simply showing off their newest game at the time, WWF Attitude, Loose in Los Angeles would begin and Mean Gene Okerlund would come out to greet the crowd. Unfortunately, Mean Gene would make the announcement that Goldberg would not be able to compete on the show due to injury. To drive this point home, footage of Bret Hart attacking Goldberg with a steel chair at Slamboree just days before was shown at the big screen. Which does make a lot of sense. Bret Hart does not fancy Goldberg.
Bill Goldberg. When Bill Goldberg.
Amid all this comes Diamond Dallas Page, playing off the crowd and challenging the fans to a match. Which, funny story, in a blog posted on Tumblr, a guy named Brad Lynch was an attendee at the event, and he documented his experience at Loose in Los Angeles. And he says, and I quote, DDP, playing full heel, challenged fans to a match and called us all computer geeks and Nintendo nerds. Which sounds very hilarious. But what's funnier, Dallas, being a Nintendo nerd or a stalker? With this open challenge comes Sting, descending from the rafters of the Los Angeles Convention Center to accept DDP's challenge. The referee would hand Sting and Page controllers, and a television would drop from the rafters to start the game. The two would play some WCW Mayhem, giving the live crowd a demo of the company's hot new game. Sting would get the better of Page in game, leading to DDP dropping his controller and attacking Sting. The television set would rise back into the rafters, and an impromptu match between DDP and Sting would begin. Diamond Dallas Page would hit a powerbomb on Sting before turning his attention towards the ref, clotheslining him outside of the ring. Just like in the game, Sting would get the upper hand on the match, getting up and landing a combo of blows and a clothesline. After hitting two Stinger splashes and placing Page in the Scorpion Deathlock, Bret Hart would emerge from the crowd with a steel chair. Despite the referee trying to step in, Bret would nail Sting with a chair and cost DDP the match via disqualification. Bret would continue the attack until security stepped in to clear Page and Hart from the ring. Sting would be handed the WCW Mayhem Championship belt, and he would stare down WCW's head of security, Doug Dillinger, to close out the show. As you can probably gather, this event would have absolutely no bearing on any stories or events on WCW at the time. After all, Loose in Los Angeles was only ever meant to be a special presentation event for EA, to draw in and sell attendees on the company's big up-and-coming WCW game. Although in retrospect, you could say that both WCW and E3 would meet a similar fate in the end. WCW was bought out in 2001, signaling the end for one of the major promotions in professional wrestling, and recently E3 would cease operations due to many factors. With 2009 2019 being the last in-person convention. In conclusion, WCW Loose in Los Angeles serves as a piece of partially lost wrestling media. There is no complete tape of the event. This event was only meant to sell a video game, but at the same time, there was still cameras rolling to capture that footage. So maybe somewhere around the world, someone has the full event that took place that day. So if you or anyone you know has footage of Loose in Los Angeles, please post it online or reach out to me in the comments. I would love to see this full event. But that is all I have for you today. I hope you all were entertained and informed and maybe surprised at this event. I didn't find this until like a few months ago, so maybe you all haven't seen it yet either. But if you have, that's cool, I guess. But in all seriousness, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll make more silly videos like this in the future, so stop on by when the time comes. But until then, be careful.